Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, thank you to all the analysts, the investors, and the Titan family here. Damas as a baby entry into the Titan family. We represent today 6 of my pillars that are actually not here on the call. They're there back in Dubai. But they are the strongest pillars that fundamentally anchor the presence of Damas and the journey that we will unfold before you today. They are on the call listening in, by the way. So, as we basically look at Damas, and this is the first time I stand before you talking about it, I would like to take you through a journey that talks about how the brand has come to be. I would like to take you through a journey about how the brand has positioned itself recently and where it's going to go forward from here. So the journey is in 5 different parts. A story at the beginning, a journey, and where it ends later on. Starting off with the Damas story. The brand was founded in 1907 as a goldsmith back in Gold Souk in Dubai. Moved into retailing sometime around 1959, expanded across the GCC, and has had a significant presence in multiple countries over time. Today, it is the largest retailer in the GCC in jewelry. There was a difficult period in between, 2009 to 2019, with multiple issues that beset the brand, multiple changes in management, and things that actually kind of caused it to falter. But a journey of transformation began in 2020. And it has set the stone for Titan to acquire and therefore enrich, improve, and elevate the brand from here on. That's where we are today. Right? At the time of evaluation of acquisition, this is the CY24 numbers, the brand had 146 stores across all of GCC countries, was the number 1 brand from an unaided recall point of view in UAE, and was known for product and design. And I'll talk about some of the product and design bits here. I think Revati's mentioned many of the things here which this brand has done over periods of time. These are names that have become very, very popular amongst people in the GCC. The market opportunity, it's a $9 billion US market, right? Growing at roughly 6.5%, 6.9% to be exact. The 2 big names here, KSA and UAE, are the opportunity. UAE growing at par with 6.9%. KSA, with the investment and the funding and the spend that is actually happening, is expected to grow higher than the average. Therefore, KSA sets the tone for forward ambition in many senses of the word. The rest of the countries, the remaining 4, actually make up about 25% of the market. Qatar actually is one of the highest net worth individual market there, with Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain actually bringing up the rest of the bill. If you look at the customers in the market today, the customers, we've broadly segmented the customers into 3 broad types, right? You've got the indigenous customers who are the locals, as we call them in casual lingo. 44% of the overall market is indigenous customers. Another 42% is people who've come from outside, and here we've segmented the Indians and the Asians out, which is 14%. Right? Now, the Indians and the Asian concentration is highest in UAE, Kuwait, and places like that. Different segments of concentration and different kinds of concentration. Right? It has moved beyond the original South Indian concentration to now include a very rich mix of Indians that are present in UAE at the moment. Yeah? Total population 64 million and expected to grow, with UAE specifically looking at doubling its population in the next 5 to 10 years. Right? So the opportunity actually expands not only on the basis of key drivers, but also on the basis of the fact that there is a large influx of people that are being requested to come on by the government through all its means. Where does the brand stand today while the evaluation was done in CY24? It is one of the most aspirational brands, what we call as accessible luxury or mid-premium or any of the other names that you choose to actually use. This is a brand that epitomizes that particular name in the Arab demography. It is the brand that is possibly the one that leads to the international brands, Cartier, Bulgari, and all the other ones that are actually a notch above. The Arab community actually avidly looks at these brands and is very, very clearly inspired by Europe as a jewelry destination. In fact, many of the Europeans come here to purchase from these brands, and many of them purchase from Damas. Right? We have about 26% of our sales that happens to European tourists that actually come and purchase some of these brands from us. We have, over a period of time, done our product offering in terms of three broad layers. The first one is the heritage collections. These are very, very strongly in-house Arab-inspired collections, all designed in-house, right? Some of the names here, and I will go through all of them, are very, very iconic. The brand has also been the first to actually bring in categories. Right? What you see in India today as modern gold, many of the brands today talk about modern gold, was something that this brand launched with Italian design 20 years ago. Farfasha as a brand was something that this brand launched 20 years ago as modern brand, modern gold. Right? It moved away from a gold with making charge to an UCP-based product pricing in gold. That was 20 years ago. Right? It was the first brand, or it was the first company to have launched a brand in LGD at scale. Gaia was the first edition of LGD branding in the Gulf. There's also been a legacy of global luxury partnerships. The three of them that remain today are two Italian ones and one Japanese one. Going into the collections, and I'll speak a little bit about how these collections are deeply rooted in Arab heritage culture. The first one that you see here, Aleph, it represents the first alphabet of the Arab language. It's the beginning of literacy. It is the beginning of language, right? The emblem is so iconic today. That emblem has become the same as Damas. If you go to our stores, if you look at our overall brand logo, everywhere that you see the brand today, that is the emblem that you will see. That is the symbol that you will see. Lace is basically inspired from the lattice work. Lattice is very, very common in architecture in the Gulf. Dome, carved stones, which we talked about in hues some time back, started off with domes of carved stones. And these are precious stones, right? In the Gulf, you don't have semi-precious stones as a category at all. It is all precious color stones, right? And it is a journey, again, dome started off almost 16 years ago with carved stones. That's the kind of journey that this brand has actually had. It's been significantly inspired by Italian design. There's been a lot of collaboration that the brand has done in Italian design, and the kind of finish that therefore it actually inspires in the jewelry. Farfasha, I mentioned, modern gold. You can see this. These are products at 1 gram, 2 grams, where you talk about a UCP pricing, right? And that's the journey that the brand has chosen to take away from a standard Asian denomination of gold weight, value, and making charge. Gaia, lab-grown diamonds, today is almost, I wouldn't possibly kind of have a current number that I would want to quote, but a significant contributor to the overall diamonds value and revenue that we actually kind of look at. Three brands, and I talked about these two, and I'll talk about why they are important. Roberto Coin and Fope, two Italian brands, mainstream design brands in what they call hot jewelry in the Italian sphere, have given rise to aspirational luxury intermediaries. We have Amelia as a collection that we've introduced. Amelia Earhart inspired that, right? And these brands actually, with Italian collaboration and design, we are one of the largest collaborators of ITA, right? So these brands have actually given rise to those aspirational midstream collections like Amelia that have actually taken place. Mikimoto, South Sea pearls, all the other pearls that we've actually kind of seen over the world and over the years, retails in a number of our stores and has given rise to Kiku, an in-house collection with freshwater pearls. So in all of these cases, there is a high end of the brand that we actually kind of look at and a mid-level that we offer in all our stores. That's how the laddering in the stores has actually evolved over a period of time. So the three-step ladder that is there is clearly visible in every single one of our stores. As we basically look at the journey forward, there are a couple of things that I would like to kind of restate here. With the acquisition of 67% by Titan, there is a two-brand strategy that is unfolding in the Middle East, right? The Asian customers, 14% of the Asian customers that we talked about will fundamentally be addressed by Tanishq, and the Arab consumer will get addressed by Damas. The tourists, especially Europe, will continue to get addressed by Damas. But that's the way that the two-brand strategy will work. And therefore, the overall markets available for Titan to look at as an opportunity, right? The key fundamentals are to become the most loved indigenous brand from the Arabs, for the Arabs, and to imbibe basically the past genealogy, which is design and craftsmanship, as well as customer experience. Customer experience, I think we talked about earlier, an 85% NPS. This brand has a 92% NPS, right? So we are at a level which can set us apart from everybody else. From the 146 stores, there are a set of stores that we have therefore chosen to convert into Tanishq. There are a set of stores that basically were multi-brand stores like mono-brand stores like Graph that we've hived off, and a few non-performing ones that we've closed. So from 146, we stand today at 123 stores at exit 25. The revenue for those continuing stores in exit 25 is 740 million AED. That becomes the base that we are carrying forward from here on, right? And that is the base on which the ambition going forward is getting built. And this is the network across the different countries of this 123 that we are talking about, right? As you can see, the largest network actually is in UAE. KSA, while it is a large opportunity, we have a lower number of stores on the ground, predominantly concentrated around Riyadh and Jeddah, and the other countries have a reasonable mix on the ground. These are the key levers as we go forward. One of our key focus areas is retail, productivity, and therefore same-store growth. Network expansion, where we actually have KSA as an opportunity. A fresh and a new tone for the brand, and we'll speak about that a little bit. A revamped product marketing approach. Many of the things that Titan is actually doing in its playbook is something that we are actually bringing to bear there. Therefore, there's a very strong synergistic handholding that is actually happening between even the design team and Titan. In fact, the design director that we have on board in Damas is a lady from Titan that we have actually brought on. She's a German. She's on the call right now. Supply chain, a complete kind of a relook at supply chain, a huge amount of synergy in terms of processes, efficiencies, cost reductions that we've embarked on for supply chain. And finally, the digital journey that Shaumen kind of explained beautifully, and something that we believe is very, very important, because digital commerce here in this economy is likely to become 10% of the overall market in the next 10 years. Right? So the opportunity for us in digital is much larger than what could possibly be chased at as a percentage of the market in India. And therefore, we are basically looking at that as an area that we want to really invest in. Okay. On retail, the same store growth, the two key levers of conversion and ticket size are what we are looking at. We started off on a pilot using only 5 stores, 3 in UAE, 2 in Saudi, that we actually embarked on as a project of sorts, where we looked at assortment, we looked at replenishment, we looked at VM, we looked at display, highlight categories. We basically found that we were able to move the needle significantly in a 3 to 5 month period that we did this. Okay? Now, what we've chosen to do is simplistically start extending that formula across. And this is actually Titan. This theory of disposition was Venkat's old pet theory, right? So we basically brought the theory of dispersion back here. And we are using that to now start moving the needle across all the stores in the network today. Gradually, over the course of this year, the same formula of the 3-4 things that I talked about, assortment, replenishment, VM, highlight categories, consumer-based assortments, will fundamentally start moving the needle across the entire network. And this is the fundamental of same-store growth that we will achieve. Space productivity, basically the kind of size that we've actually had, we are at an average of about 1,200 square feet. And that 1,200 square feet we will look at as broadly the right size that we want to have our stores in. There are some stores which are smaller, some stores which are bigger. The bigger stores are some things that we are fundamentally looking at making different uses for, but going forward, largely we will be in 1,000 to 1,200 square feet space. People productivity, we have started looking at all 700 plus of our people. We now have almost individual N is equal to 1 performance index based on data. Again, data is a huge borrowing from Titan that we've taken in the last 3 months. We now have an individual performance scorecard for 700 plus employees. We've broken that down into the key facets of whether it's a capability problem, whether it's a skill problem or a confidence problem. We now have embarked on training to be able to address that over the next few months, right? Breaking it down into these fundamentals, you may think it's not rocket science, but the larger part of the journey is not rocket science either. It's simple basics, a return to fundamentals and a restatement of what needs to be done better and what needs to be done well. Expansion of network. I spoke about the larger market being KSA, right? Growing at a much faster rate. So we intend to go beyond Jeddah and Riyadh. Makkah Madina, of course, being the tourist population, will continue to be something that we look at as a network expansion, but also cities like Jizan, Taif, Hale. These are cities that we fundamentally, Damas, Dhahran, that we are planning on actually expanding our network in. Beyond that, in UAE selectively, we will be expanding. There are newer catchments that are emerging with the growth in construction that is happening there. Dubai South, the Expo area, these are areas that we believe that there is a large residential catchment that will get built up. And therefore, those are the network areas that we are looking at as we go forward. New brand and marketing approach. We're fundamentally looking at going back to the roots of the brand, the culture, the heritage, and the overarching Arab influence that we are talking about, and restating it in an aspirational vein. The media mix in the Gulf has predominantly been digital, and therefore many parts of whatever I would be talking to you about would mainly be in the frame of digital or digital influenced media, right? But using those, bringing in an emotional storytelling, some examples of that I would be talking about are some things that we have been able to make. This is the campaign, or there are 2 campaigns that I would be talking about in this particular juncture. Both of them in the first quarter of this year. Damas Diamonds was something that we actually used to launch our new product for this quarter. Damas believes in minor, small capsule collections, many of which I will talk about. And these have actually been launched across with this particular campaign. Now, you will have to remember this in the light of the social liberalization that's actually happening in the Gulf. There is a context, right? If you look at this film, it's not very different from what a Tanishq or a Carrot Lane or anybody else will put in. But this is the woman who's actually been allowed to come out and work. This is the woman who's been allowed to get a driving license. This is the woman who's actually been allowed to go to university, travel, make presentations, and join the workforce. That's the context in which you'll have to look at many of these things here.
For the quiet beginnings that shine from within. For the bonds that make us glow brighter. For the victories that remind us of who we are. For the people who make life shine. Because every story deserves brilliance.
While this was a slightly modern take on women, we went back during the festive season of Ramadan to actually look at the basic Arab culture of family, the basic Arab cultural tenet of togetherness, celebration along with the community. And that was the second campaign that we actually did during the Q1 period. So the abayas and the kandura and the traditional flavor comes back. The Memory Palace was built of an idea that actually emerged from a consumer itself in terms of how Damas has actually played a role in their lives, 3 generations of their lives. Product and merchandising, many of the best practices that Tanishq already has, many of the best practices that are employed across in terms of basically going back to a very, very deep design-led approach, starting from the cultural and the heritage-led roots that the brand has had, but starting to make moves towards being progressive, right? The brand has to move forward, the brand has to become number one, therefore we need to be able to move the consumer forward. And many of the science-based paths that we are actually kind of taking from Titan in terms of the synergistic processes that we are imbibing, and basically similar to what Carrot Lane was trying to say, create a code of newness for the brand. Okay. From a point of view of how we are actually wanting the brand to be perceived, we want the brand to be perceived for newness and design. And that's the journey we are embarking on. Many parts of those additions you will actually see coming alive from Q3 and Q4. By the way, our Q3 and Q4 is calendar year. We work on a Jan-December calendar year, right? We don't work on the financial year of April, March. So there's always this disjointedness that you will actually see. These are some of the products that you actually saw in the films, right? The pyramid doesn't need an explanation. Youth is similar in language to what a Mia and a Carrot Lane has. 168 is actually a 24/7, it's the everyday collection. So 24 into 7 is 168, right? So math. Treasure, diamonds and color stones. What's back in trend right now, a large variety of bangles using diamonds and multiple hues of color stones, precious color stones once again. Valentine's saw malachite really coming back into fore with love as the key symbol and the emblem of Valentine's. And Kiko Arabia, what you saw in the Memory Palace campaign, this is the freshwater pearl collection that I talked about, Kiku, and we have done really well using this collection in Q1. And a new edition of lace that we actually put down with a completely different take on color plus diamonds. So you can see a lot more color as something that we have actually invested in the quarter, because that's on point and on trend at this particular point of time. Newer editions of Dome. And this one was something that we actually decided to do because the Dubai World Cup was happening in March, the horse racing cup. It's a very, very important part of the culture there, right? Horse racing. And the World Cup was happening in March. So the stallion became the emblem for this collection, representing nobility, pride, integrity, and all of those values. Again, an outstandingly well-performing collection for us in the quarter. Sourcing has been an area, like I mentioned, where we have actually deeply invested in borrowing from Titan, starting from a supply chain strategy rehaul, from a vendor rehaul, overall revamp of the kind of way in which we source, standardization of quality manuals, and all of that. This is an area where we've already made a lot of headway. In fact, in this area, I must say, work has begun well before Titan's actually completing the transaction. Almost 6 to 9 months before, Titan people have started working with Damas in order to be able to implement many of these things. So as we stand at the end of March, most of the work here is already completed, and therefore we can start seeing the benefits of that in forward transactions that come. Digital analytics, I talked about e-commerce being a large opportunity for us. We shifted from a Magento to an Akinon platform. We are evaluating to see whether we can borrow technology from Carrot Lane as well as we go forward, and also technology from Titan. We strongly believe that the path that Carrot Lane's chosen to take is what we want to invest in. So the omni-channel journey, the endless aisle, and what Shauman so beautifully described as digital discovery and digital-led commerce is the way that this brand would also want to go. During the remaining part of this year, we will actually see omni-channel and endless aisle unfolding, and the complete digital discovery journey is something that we plan to launch from next year. So these are huge rocks that we are actually building from a e-commerce plan perspective, which is expected to be significant as we go towards 2030. On the digital ecosystem itself, we are moving from a data foundation and governance where we are today. There's a good data foundation and governance that is in place already, to being able to move to the digital enterprise that Titan is seeking to become. We are leapfrogging to become that using Titan's help. There's a lot of work that's actually happening on this front with Titan's help to be able to make this journey happen. There is some headwinds as we stand, right? What has started happening from March has not been easy on the economy. It's not been easy on the company. We've had a loss of about 82 crores that we recorded for the quarter, Jan-March. But majority of that has actually come in from March itself, right? Because March got affected so badly. We believe that this is something that will peter out, come back towards normalcy as we go towards Q4. We are preparing ourselves very strongly for that. We are building on every small positive that we see at the moment and choosing to make the moves based on what we see working out. And we strongly believe that this is a temporary phase and we will be on course for our CY29 ambition, where we are moving from where we started off end of 2025 to a 2x plus growth and to become the #1 brand with a pan-GCC appeal anchored on the parts that we spoke about just now. With that, I come to the end of this presentation. Thank you so much for listening in to me. Yeah.